welcome all. I can only speak about the experience that I lived during the revolution in Egypt, and the first thing that hit our mind when we were, especially after the second day when we managed to take over the police, was why on earth are there not more revolutions than so? It's all about an idea that comes to your mind that, you know, enough of the crap, and we're going to take things in our hands. So when you come to think of it, why on earth is someone like Geert Wilders able to affect so many people in the Netherlands? Or at some point in time, why on earth was George Bush even able to win twice? The idea seems a bit ridiculous. If somebody comes from outer space and looks at the people, like, you know, your benefit is in that you leave your welfare, hate your neighbor, go and bomb some other country to democratize it. And when you think about the story, you're like, this is nonsense. There should be a lot more revolutions going on. And this is the first thing that hit us in Tahrir. And it's like, the moment people said, you know, this is nonsense, everybody came out. And the moment you come out, things start rolling, and then it becomes something like a moment of glory, and it opens so many gates. All of a sudden, every single social segment you can think of starts to be activated, and activated very vigorously into changing society and reshaping their lives, taking back whatever was taken from them. So as you go on, you discover, I mean, of course, the story becomes a bit more complex, and your idea about why on earth there is no revolution every week somewhere else starts to become a bit, you know, more of a very ambitious story, to the extent of naivety, once the counter-revolution starts to come back. And the counter-revolution starts to come back through many social segments, and it has, as I said, I've talked about that before, but it has social roots. It's never just a regime trying to obstruct the revolution. There are social roots for the counter-revolution, and it's not just business. There are a lot of segments of society that help it. But ultimately, the counter-revolution organizes itself around two main axes. It did this in Tunisia, it's doing this in Egypt, and probably it's going to be the same everywhere. And the two axes are social rights, workers' rights, that is class struggle, and the other axis is imperialism. These are the two areas where counter-revolution hits most, and these are the two areas where we are still struggling most. And although they're hitting as tough as they can, and they've managed to obstruct progression on these two levels, they have not won, and it's very unlikely that they'll win, because once you activate this beast that you call revolution, it's very difficult to contain it. I want to give an example with the two things. The first was the law that bans strikes, labor strikes. It was issued 2 months ago, and the idea was no more strikes because we're in an economic crisis and we need to increase production. So if you close factories, the country will go down the toilet. If you strike, you will be sentenced to 1 year in prison. Since then, something like 500 strikes came out, and they were not able to implement this law. But at the same time, we have not been able to ban it, yet we do our strikes. And the other thing was the convoy to Gaza, which was brutally suppressed, to the extent that our buses were taken away from us by intimidating the bus companies. Then we gathered in front of the embassy, and we tried to surround the Israeli embassy. Late at night, there were only 3,000 to 5,000 people, and they attacked them and managed to injure 300 and arrest 186, which were taken to military courts. We campaigned immediately, and we threatened that we're going back to Tahrir in a million march if these kids are not released. And yesterday, as I was here, the last one was released yesterday. So it's while they're encroaching, counter-revolution is encroaching. As I said, on these two levels, it still cannot win on these two levels. And once you invigorate this social hero, not beast, it becomes very difficult to contain it again. The last thing I want to say is that the revolution in Egypt was very obviously inspired by the revolution in Tunisia, and it passed the revolutionary torch to Syria and to Yemen and to Libya before NATO hijacked it and appointed its own revolutionaries. And so Egypt has not been in revolution by itself. It's a whole regional thing. Every country has extra international connections to it. And now we see mobilization, very inspiring mobilization in Europe, in Spain, and in Greece. And it's got me wondering if, let's just imagine that the revolution concludes in Egypt and Tunisia, and significant changes happen in Spain and Greece, and these four countries decide, we're not playing the old bullshit game that we played for. That will change the map of the world. That will change not just Europe and the Middle East, it will change that. Only four countries will be able to change the map of the world if they just shake hands and say, something, all of this rubbish is over, and we're going to work very differently from now on. And this is, I guess, when I was in Dam Square, this is the main, yesterday, this is the main idea that kept coming to my mind, is like, yes, of course, if these revolutions have no reason to fight each other, it's the ruling regimes that are ruling the people against their own welfare, that are trying to pit us against each other. And when you think about it, if you really analyze what's being said by the ruling regimes, the right-wing neoliberals, as to what we have to sacrifice for what, God knows, but for something, you find that it's such a silly idea that sometimes you'd wonder why people are under the spell of this idea, and why they solve their problems by subscribing more and more into right-wing policies. So it's the only way out for us. I don't think there will be any reform. I personally don't think there will be any reform possible to the system. The system has to be banged all out of the map, in the Middle East, in Europe, in the United States, and everywhere. So I will leave it at that. Thank you.